Steve and I had a good marriage. Everyone said so, and yet I wondered if it was good enough. Some of you may have at some point asked yourselves a similar question. For 10 years, I was married to a kind, intelligent, caring husband. We had 2 wonderful children. It seemed selfish to want more, but I did. In this show, I will vulnerably share with you the inner struggle I faced. Family challenges are often not something we talk very openly about, and so many of us struggle all by ourselves with difficult questions and don't get a lot of help from others. Hi, this is Marlena Fiol from Becoming Who We Truly Are, a YouTube show that deepens our understanding of who we are and also what's possible for us. Allow me to read you a brief excerpt from my memoir. The 4 of us sat around a Formica table at a booth in one corner of the cafe in Galesburg, Illinois train station. A faint stench of rancid grease hung in the air. Barry Manilow's otherwise velvety voice whined from a tinny speaker above our heads. "Oh, Mandy," part of a rusty spring hung out of a gash in the brown vinyl seat cover next to me. Without looking up from her tray, the waitress placed 4 tall plastic cups of water on the table in front of us. "Can you please bring him a smaller cup?" I asked, nodding at 4-year-old Stefan. Only his blonde mop of hair and greenish blue eyes peered over the top of the table. Shireen, 4 years older and always his little mother, was trying to convince him to sit in a booster. "It's okay, Shireen, he'll reach his food," Steve said, gently laying a hand on our daughter's arm. Steve and I placed our orders and asked for hamburgers and fries from the kids' menu for the children. "Look, Stefan," Shireen said, "see how you can make airplanes with these napkins." The 2 of them, heads bent over a pile of paper napkins she had ripped out of a rusty metal napkin container, entered their own make-believe world. I glanced at my husband sitting next to me, slightly slouched, hands in his lap. The dark gray sweater, the one I'd given him for Christmas 4 years ago, or was it 6, bagged at his elbows. In the booth next to us sat a couple carrying on an animated conversation. I watched the young woman leaning in toward her partner, laughing brightly. "I could hardly wait to tell you about..." I turned away, swallowing against a lump that stayed stuck in my throat. The waitress brought our food. Shireen broke Stefan's burger into little pieces. Steve cut into his steak to check for doneness. The silence between us felt like air in a coffin, and I wondered when it was that we'd run out of things to talk about. Steve and I had met 10 years earlier when I was 19. I had just arrived in the U.S. from Paraguay, South America, where my parents were medical Mennonite missionaries. 7 years older and wiser, Steve guided me through the strangeness of American flush toilets and traffic lights. I was safe with him. Ours was a good marriage. Everyone said so. But here's the question. Is good really good enough? Is it asking too much to want a life partnership that provides more than safety and kindness? To want a partner, as the poet Roycroft said so beautifully, someone who has the courage to put his hand into my heaped up heart and, passing over all the pathetic things that he can't help but see there, draw out into the light all of the beautiful and radiant things that no one else has looked quite deeply enough to find. Here's the rest of that scene from my memoir. I looked over at my husband, contentedly chewing on his steak in the booth next to me, and our children, who, having lost interest in their hamburgers, were back to making paper airplanes. They are my world, these 3, I thought. The family I dreamed of as a child when my parents were busy doing the Lord's work. Steve noticed me looking at him and slowly raised one brow. His kind brown eyes seemed to ask, "Is there something wrong?" A shudder crawled down my spine, and I shook off the unthinkable, terrifying notion that in the midst of all of this serenity, something was painfully wrong. I shook my head. "How's your steak, honey?" I asked, taking a small bite of my chili, which had grown cold. Now fast forward. Steve and I have both been happily remarried to other partners for decades. But the question remains, was our painful rupture back then really necessary for all involved? What would you have done? And how do you think that would have turned out? Please post any comments or questions for me below. I am interested and I will respond promptly. For those of you who are deeply engaged in your own quest to becoming who you truly are, my path may not be the best path for you. I've spoken today about a way that I have found to move forward with increasing levels of peace, but naturally only you can decide what path best fits your needs. If you've found value in this program, please do give it a thumbs up and click the subscribe button on your screen. It really does matter. And just so you know, I'll be posting a new episode of this YouTube show each Tuesday at 6 a.m. Eastern Time. For further information on challenges in managing our intimate relationships, we recommend the following resources. First, a TED Talk by Jenna McCarthy sharing what you don't know about a marriage. Also a TEDx presentation by Dr. Andrea and Jonathan Taylor Cummings presenting the 4 habits of all successful relationships. And for a deeper look into my own experiences of failed and successful relationships, we recommend both my recently published memoir, Nothing Bad Between Us, as well as our new historical novel, Called. The web addresses of each of these are in the show notes. And remember, we are together on this journey.